One thing that I wish I had brought up that just really has nothing to do with this movie, but just the
Mm.
bit from In the Mouth of Madness where Sam Neill's character wakes up on the bus and he's Jurgen Prochnow is right next to him and he's like, "Did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue?" And then he snaps awake again and everything is blue all around him and he starts screaming his head off, freaking out everybody on the bus. It's yeah.
Oh, man, such good shit.
Yes.
Such good shit.
Oh, 90s horror is good horror. Come on. There's all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, I really wish that, like, cause I think at this point, I watched more of 80s horror than 90s horror, and there's still a 90s horror that I still haven't seen, and I'm, like, absolutely sleeping on, and I'm kicking myself in the ass for not watching these fucking movies. And I'm just like, I'm hearing about all this stuff. Like, I still need to watch these fucking movies. They're so
Hell
they're
yeah.
essential.
Hello, horror fam, best friends, and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 53rd episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror, psychological thrillers that just happen to be animated, cosmic horror, body horror, folk horror, sci-fi horror, the horror adjacent, thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. It certainly helps with the engagement. If you haven't already, maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you're so inclined. It's free to do, and you look cool doing it. Audio listeners, the show is also available on podcast services around the world like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so don't forget to leave a rating and comment when you stop by, 5 stars if you're a real one. But enough of all that housekeeping, as I have the pleasure of welcoming to his Murders with Mertens debut, Mr. Johnny Chandler. Johnny, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. We've talked about doing this for a minute. So, yeah, glad we could finally make this work out. Johnny, for those who don't know, who are you?
Oh, well, yeah, my name is Johnny Chandler. Actually a fellow Discord member of um Nightlight. And I've been here for the better part of, dang, I'm not sure, like, how many years? A couple years now?
Well, they just
And
hit their 5 year anniversary. So, you know,
but yeah, just been a fellow member for a while, and been able to chat up with all the members there, and all the loving family there, and um finally just deciding, like, you know what? I need to hop on this. Like, I really, I've been missing the podcast life. I've done 2 podcasts in my life so far, all gaming related. And I just miss it. And I love talking about movies, so just what a time to be be here.
yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely, man. It's I've mentioned this before quite a bit this year. It's just been kind of crappy year getting this together for me, and I'm glad, very, very glad of the opportunities that I have had with people, and was very much looking forward to this one, and glad we can make it work because. Tonight, we're going to dive into 1997's Perfect Blue, directed by Satoshi Kon, with a screenplay by Sarayuki Murai. I'm horrible with Japanese names, so please don't come after me with that. It's adapted from the novel Perfect Blue, Complete Metamorphosis. Also, just happens to be animated. And very, very cool in that endeavor. Johnny, why this film?
so around this time, I was really diving into, like, animated movies, like Heavy Metal, Akira, and there's been quite other few, but Perfect Blue has always been like that one movie that, for one, before I actually started watching for the first time, was always told that like you have to see this movie. Like since you're a horror fan, you have to see this movie. And I finally saw it, I believe last year, I want to say. And I was just like, my mouth just like dropped. It was just such a freaking fun psychological horror movie, which is animated. It's just like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just like it's just
Yeah.
it's hard to put together, but it's
I think
such
that's
a good time.
exactly, you're hitting the nail on the head there. This is just kind of an awesome psychological thriller that just happens to be anime. In fact,
Mhm.
I think it was supposed to be live action. They just couldn't get funding for it, and that's how this came about. Um, and I think there was like another like live action adaptation a few years after this that is kind of panned in comparison to this film. But yeah, it's one of those movies where if this had, been made as, a live action feature film from any country, anywhere in the world, it would have, been every bit as fun and cool, except not. It's, there's just a little something extra that pushes this over the edge being anime. I don't know, man. It's not to mention the fact that it's become quite a big inspiration for like Darren Aronofsky. Like a lot of shots in Requiem of a Dream completely mimic what we see in this. Like there's a bathtub scene a little bit later in the film. And even though he kind of denies it, this movie is like proto Black Swan, like all the way.
Man, I can definitely agree to that. Is just like just the matching of a pop star, just all is like merges together, like pop star and how you use like a ballerina,
Yeah, ballerina.
ballerinas.
Yeah, it's you know it, when they're in their idol costumes, they're wearing fucking tutus. I mean,
Yes.
it's there you go. It's you've got the main character's name is Mima, and Natalie Portman's character is Nina. There's all these little touches that reality is just breaking all around both of them. That yeah, if he doesn't want to say that he was particularly inspired for that film out of what was put forth here, well, I don't know. I don't know. It's yeah, it's pretty clear to me. But yeah, yeah, this movie rips, and I think when you start to, I watched it for the first time a little bit earlier this year. It was on Shutter.
Mhm.
um, as much as I love that streaming service, the picture quality is not exactly best all the time.
Yeah.
It's even stuff that's supposed to be HD doesn't always look that great. And this was kind of muddy looking. I ended up buying a copy on a digital copy on Amazon. But it certainly looked better watching it that way. But yeah, I was kind of floored by what I saw. And we in talking in that Nightlight Discord, we definitely came to the realization that this would be a good one for us to pair up on here. So yeah, glad we can make this happen.
For sure.
Um, yeah, why don't we just get into it here? We start with a stage show of a Power Rangers knockoff while this kind of bored crowd watches in silence, and we get a couple of kids running off because, well, they're extra bored. There's media there, so I assume this is like some kind of a promotional event from a production company or something like that. We get the kids complaining about the lackluster event being nothing like the show on TV, and they run past some adults discussing this idol group, Chum, which I love that it's even spelled out like George Michael's group Wham, complete with the exclamation point. Did you pick up on that? Because I
Yeah.
sure did. It's that was really funny to me. But yeah, these people, in talking about the group, there's like rumors that one of the members, Mima, might be leaving. And some of the people outside the little arena there, they happen to notice that there's these punks that were at this location the previous week, causing something of a ruckus. And hopefully they don't do anything this time. Well, that they're very, very much leading us right to that, aren't they? We
Yep.
cut to backstage where the girls of Cham are preparing to go on stage. I find it really interesting how infantilized they all are. And even though Mima kind of wants to leave and grow, she's very childish in this bit too. They're all just being taken care of. They're being dressed. They're all acting like complete children as far as their nerves and everything. And yeah, it's again, Black Swan. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's just like the whole image is just like just pictured like the 90s pop star groups. It's just like them just not really knowing much and just like being, I want to say wet behind the ears, but it's still more or less like to the point where um they everything's taken care of.
Yep.
Like everything is like red carpet treatment, stuff like that, and yeah, just shows it right then and there. Crazy.
Yeah. And then the girls, they rush on stage to this J-pop beat, and we fade to a white title card with the coolest damned font choice. I really, really like this. It feels like, makes me think of like signage in BioShock, and
Ooh.
like stuff out of like the 20s, the 30s, the 40s.
Mhm.
It's a very, very cool title treatment. I like it. And we shift to Mima on a train, listening to her own pop song on an earbud while remembering the experience on the stage. And the crowd is going nuts for them. And then back in the present, she's at the grocery store. She's buying milk and fish food at the grocery store. Um, and it kind of keeps cutting back and forth from this time, which is either later that day or maybe only a day or two later, and the events of the performance. And um, as the performance is going on, those punks, they're getting drunk and rowdy. They're chanting Mima's name. We cut to her agent and manager who are just off stage. They're arguing over things. We actually go to their office of the talent agency, and they're arguing over Mima's future. Um, in television. And then back to the performance where this creepy dude who's working security at the show, he's watching Mima perform, but through the perspective of kind of his upturned palm of his hand. So it's like he's
Yeah.
watching her sing and dance around in the palm of his hand. Um, and he's kind of snapped back to attention when one of the drunk dudes throws a can on stage. So he gets up and goes to confront them as at the exact same time the song is done and Mima is just kind of struggling to announce her leaving the group.
Mhm.
We get the loudmouth of this group of punks. One of his buddies pins down the security dude, and he starts just wailing away in this guy's face. And the guy is like extra creepy in that he just kind of stands there and takes it and lets it bleed.
Yeah. It's
Um, yeah.
just like trying to remember exactly, but yeah, it's just I don't know, just that person in general. It's just like
Well, there's something really off-putting with the proportions of his face.
yeah,
Um, I don't. It's like the placement of his eye just does
yeah,
not
it's
feel
yeah.
like it's where it's supposed to be. It feels like it's almost back here. It's which is great for audio listeners. Sorry about that. But ultimately, yeah, he's very unsettling. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, he just kind of takes it, and then ultimately the crowd starts turning against the drunks, and they start throwing like trash and cans back and forth between the two groups. And Mima just finally cuts that shit out and breaks things up by yelling for the crowd to stop it. Um, and the leader of these drunk kids, he's about to throw something else when the creepy security guard kind of grabs him by the wrist and stops him. And these kids decide, okay, fine, we're just going to leave. So they just walk off. And yeah, the security guard just kind of turns to listen to Mima, and he's got his bleeding face and he's just smiling at her. And she's really struggling at this point. She can't quite say she's leaving. And one of her fellow, idols there makes the announcement for her, essentially. And the crowd can't really believe it. Um,
Right.
but Mima decides this is the moment where she's going to sing her last song, and the crowd and Creeper Dude look on. I know there's like a name for this character from the website later in the film.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep calling him, the creepy dude or the creeper because it's just more fitting to me. But it's also a lot easier, so we're just going to go with that.
Yeah.
Um,
They are considered on there just hecklers, just heckler 1, 2, and 3.
yeah,
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Let's see. In the present, Mima makes it home to her apartment. And when she unlocks the door, we get this match cut of the door opening from backstage at the event as she leaves the venue with her manager and agent. And she's got fans and press going wild. You got people trying to, push fan letters into her hands and everything. Someone yells out that they're always looking at Mima's room, and she pauses getting into the car when she hears this. And then we shift back to her pausing as she enters her apartment. There's all these really cool match cuts in this film that really help with the breaking of reality. It's just I was very, very happy to notice a lot of this stuff again, watching this for a podcast, just because, you're not looking at it all just from an entertainment perspective, but you're, trying to look for a little bit more meaning in things. And, it was really cool to see. I like that
Oh
kind of
yeah.
stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, uh, we cut back to her getting into her apartment. She puts away her groceries, starts filling the bathtub. She feeds her fish. She's got like some neon tetras. And she just kind of collapses face first onto her futon. Um, and it's at this moment that we get a kind of a look around her place. And, I'm one to talk, but, it's a lot of like, kind of childish shit going on here and there, and a lot of, just clutter. This is clearly somebody in her early 20s who this is her first place as she's, getting started in entertainment. And yeah, finally, the news is playing on the TV, and she finally gets up. I think it's in this moment that she takes the poster for her group down off the wall and rolls it up. She's ready to start this new chapter in her life. And then she sits down and she starts reading through some of the fan letters. And one of them mentions Mima's room. And she feels a little freaked out about it before the phone rings, kind of snapping her back to reality. And it's her mother, who's worried about her, giving up her singing career for acting. And I think she's got something of a good relationship with her mother, but ultimately you can see that she's like tired of having this conversation with her. It's mom's talking about, oh, your uncle buys all your albums and all the other stuff, all the merch, and it's you always wanted to do this, why? And all of a sudden Mima's kind of saved by call waiting. There's a call coming through. And yeah, she's like, hold on. There's a call on the other line. She switches over, and we just get creepy breathing.
Oh God.
And yeah, that's always fun, right? She
Mhm.
pops back over there. That's why I don't pick up numbers that I don't know. Not just because of the telemarketers, but
Mhm.
you might get a heavy breather.
Yep.
She pops back over to her mother, telling her it was a wrong number. And then they're again interrupted by an alarm from the bathtub. So she tells her mom to call her back in a few. She runs into the bathroom, turns off the water, and then she starts hearing ringing from the other room. And she's like irritated, thinking it's her mom calling her back right away. But no, it's the fax machine, actually. And we see this creepy page printing up with traitor written all over it, very stylistically. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
just
just the facts, ma'am, just the facts.
yeah.
We zoom out from her window as she kind of stares out the window after that Mima's room note. She's thinking to herself, is somebody watching me? Something like that. Clearly she feels like something's not right. And it zooms way, way out before we see her close her curtains. And yeah, we cut to Mima on the set of a television show, repeating her line, "Who are you?" over and over, which is perfect because, she's trying to figure out what the fuck's going on in her life as well.
Yep.
Um, I love what they're doing with all the dialogue and the cuts back and forth. This film knows what it's doing with this stuff.
Oh yeah, it's just like it makes you feel like, am I really in reality or is this person like in an alternate like dream like state of like what's good like is this is real? This is really real. What's going on?
Yep. Yep. And yeah, she asks her manager, Rumi, who is, it's revealed a little bit later, is a former idol herself, um, what that note about Mima's room means. And Rumi just kind of yawns really distractedly and says it's a website. But, because this was released in 1997, she actually says it's an internet homepage.
Mm.
Um, yeah. Oh, I'm fucking old.
Oh, you're
Rumi
fine.
Rumi explains what that is, but Mima has no idea what she's talking about. She's like, "Do you get it?" Mima's like, "Nope, not at all." We get a little bit of the filming of a scene. It's like a police show with investigators solving a series of murders. And one believes that the killer flays his victims for sexual gratification, but the other believes he's trying to become a woman, kind of a la Buffalo Bill. Um, Mima is just enraptured by this lady's performance as this. She's like a psychologist or something like that. Um, but yeah, they call for Mima on set. It's time for her, her big moment here, her one line. In fact, her manager is kind of lamenting that she only has the one line. This is where Mima's agent comes in. Mima waits for the filming to start, practicing her line to herself, but she kind of starts to get overwhelmed by all the people on set. We've got all these flashes of people having little side conversations, kind of cutting up a little bit. It's almost like she thinks that people are talking about her or laughing about her or something, and all the lights and everything. It's super overwhelming. And we even get a flash of the creeper from her final concert there, standing there looking on. Whether he's there or not, hard to say. But yeah, she's kind of freaking out a little bit, but then we just cut right to the producer and the writer of the show showing up on set. And they take a moment to speak with the lead actors. They're delivering some fan letters that came to their office. The producer notices that the one on top of the stack, it's not for them. So he picks it off of there when he hands things over. And then we get the actress from the main characters there asking the writer, "Well, who's the criminal?" And he's like, "Can't tell you that. It'd spoil the fun." This movie's so fucking meta. It's
Yes.
yeah, it's a really good time.
Hmm. It's like, who is it? It's like, yeah, no, I can't tell you. Just
Yeah,
chill out. Just
yeah,
relax.
yeah. Just watch. Um, as they walk away, it's revealed that the writer has kind of painted himself into a corner with the identity of the killer. And he's going to have to get kind of creative with how they're going to continue this TV show. Um, So Mima's agent takes an opportunity. He kind of slides up beside them as they're walking. He wants to ask them for more lines since Mima's so popular around the station there. Everybody likes her and everything. He's like, yeah, a few more lines wouldn't hurt. And the writer's just concerned about her being a pop idol, and that kind of limiting things. He doesn't really see her as an actor. Um, but yeah, the agent kind of presses that she's given that up and is looking to make a big change. Rumi just kind of stares in silence. She, keeps pushing for her to be, an actor who also sings in a lot of these early scenes. She's just obsessed with Mima just continuing on this singing career in one way or another, probably because she used to be an idol herself. So the producer hands the agent the fan letter that was meant for Mima. And we cut back to her on set. She's about to deliver her line, but this is the moment where the agent opens up the envelope and it kind of explodes in his face and it injures his hands. Um,
Jesus,
and
man.
yeah, the old exploding letter. And we see as he's crumpled on the ground and passing out from the pain, there's a page that survived the explosion saying, "This is a warning. The next one will be for real," as it soaks up blood from the floor. Um, yeah, yeah, that's
Man.
not a good sign. Not a good
No.
sign. Uh,
When I saw this scene for the first time, I was like, just like, whoa, ho, we're already hitting that territory. Like, what's going on? Just kind of like thrown back a little bit. It's like, okay,
yeah.
now I'm in for it. Like I'm sitting up.
And this movie, part of that too, I think also makes it really feel like an 80s or 90s thriller in some ways. Um, I think an exploding letter is not super realistic, but also it's got that kind of old school feel to it. And a lot of this movie is. But yeah, I liked it. We fade to Mima's apartment where Rumi sets up a hella old school Mac for Mima. Um, I think what was it, like a Macintosh Performa or something like that?
Ah, that thing was like one really old school
Oh
Macintosh,
yeah, which is
man.
so funny because the iMac wasn't that out in like 97. So this might have been like the model of a Mac like right before that, because that's probably when this would have been animated and everything.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's very old school looking. And Mima asks her about the incident with the exploding letter, and Rumi just kind of brushes it off since the agent wasn't badly injured. He's fine. It's okay. We're not going to call the police. We're not going to draw any attention to the set or anything like that. Nah, we're just going to let that go. Um,
Red flag. Red
yeah,
flag.
yeah. It's but we also know that Mima is fairly childlike and just lets these people kind of run her life to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's like oh God, what's her face? The main character in Suspiria, the original one. How
Oh.
she's, being given specific things to eat and drink, how her life is being controlled by these witches that run this school. And, even Argento's original intention for that film was that they were all going to be much younger characters. So to really push that idea, they speak in really childlike ways to each other. All the doorknobs on all the doors are up extra high just to create that feeling of, a childlike setting in that film.
Huh. Okay.
And I think in some ways this movie does that with just kind of, brushing some things off and people just controlling Mima's life for her. Um, but yeah, the manager at this point is going to explain how to access the internet to Mima like you would to your mother back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad you totally got that too. It's
Yeah.
and they go to launch the world's most popular browser, Netscape Navigator, because back then
Oh
it
boy.
sure as shit was. I remember it well.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Mima still doesn't get it. She doesn't understand what she's supposed to be doing with this, but yeah, and then Rumi offers to run through it one more time for her. She leaves, and yeah, later Mima's there kind of fumbling around with things. She enters in this URL from the little fan letter, and she goes to Mima's room. There she finds a blog written from her perspective. And she kind of laughs it off at first, but then she starts reading more and more. And she starts getting a little concerned when the descriptions of recent events get a little too detailed. Um, as she's looking through all this stuff, the line from the TV show is repeated: "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" in her mind. Um, yeah, it's pretty fucking creepy. And
Oh
it's
God. When
it's
I
like an old
man.
school Angel Fire website or something. It's yeah, it's
Uh,
it's old.
yeah, I was just like when I start seeing it and start like put pieces together and just start reading exactly what was said. I was like, what the fuck? It's like somebody really is following her and it's just like
Yeah, like
pinpointing
the
each and
comment
everything.
about what she was buying at the grocery store, like the brand of milk, because she likes the expensive one because that's the one thing she treats herself with, and the fact that she was getting food for her fish as well.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I didn't say
Um,
fuck this.
yeah. Back on set, and Mima's finally filming her scene. She's the sister of one of the victims, and it's not much. And they cut away to show another victim, and Mima's agent and manager bemoan how small of a part it is. Back at the office, and he's got his hands all wrapped up, and he's like, what can you do? And Rumi's just wondering if it's worth Mima giving up her singing for this. Um, some of Mima's fans grumble about her lack of scenes and how boring the show, I think it's called Double Bind, is. And the creeper security guard dude is always around this trio of people. I don't know if they're photographers or what, but they're always around talking about Mima. Um, but he's just kind of listening in on the conversation. And we move from there to Mima, kind of lost in thought on the train. And there was one of the entries on the Mima's Room website about her stepping off the train with her left foot and that like fucking up her day. Um, and she thinks about that as she's about to step off the train because she was about to step off with her left foot, and she pauses and kind of gets bumped into them because she's kind of holding up the line here, and everybody's trying to get off the train. Well, it kind of freaks her out, and she just starts running and running through the hallways of the station. There, she gets up the stairs to the street level, and that's where she finally lets herself, kind of stop and catch her breath. She's finally in the open and in the sun and everything. And she looks over at this electronics store, and it's the old school setup where they've got the camera pointed out at the street. So everybody that walks by shows up on all the monitors. So she's on like all the screens, of course.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's cool. She steps off from there, and I think this is the talent agency. And there's like this gang of photographers outside, and she's just silent as she walks by them. They're all saying hi to her and everything. One of them even says, "Did they get all unfriendly when they become actresses?" Um, she steps into the elevator and she sees this news clipping taped up on the wall of the compartment there about one of the drunks from her concert being killed in a hit and run. And as she reads this, she looks back out through the closing doors of the elevator and she sees the creeper security guard standing there looking back at her. Um, God, I would feel so trapped in that moment.
yeah, just that's fucking just. traumatizing. Just like you're constantly saying this person over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Is in you're thinking in your head, is he really there? Is he really not? It's just like
Yeah.
fuck. It's just fucking with your head.
Well, and I love that with the news clipping too, they made sure that it was the guy who really stood out from the group that had like a very unique look, a very uniquely shaped face, that he's the one that was killed and was in the news clipping then, so that you remember that he was the one that got into it with the security guard back then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's cool. Entering the office, she finds her old group Cham there. They are celebrating. Yeah, they've had some success. Um, let's see here. Yeah, they finally charted a single, is what it was, and
Mm,
she even thinks back to the similar celebration that she had with the other girls back when they were first getting started. Um, and she picks up her new script from well, actually, it's what snaps her out of this reverie. Rumi hands her the new script, and she's got a few more lines. And unfortunately, she can hear her agent from the next room, making some comments about, Cham having some success as a duo now. Um, that's gotta sting a little bit.
yeah.
Um,
It's just like scum. I don't know what it is. It's like you feel because this happens all the time, like changing of members of a group, for like somebody may be in the group for a long time. You want to do other things, but
mhm.
the other members still want to do things, and some go successful, some don't, and it just happens. But the people who are still managing is kind of like trying to follow that old style and that old mindset of popularity, which in fact, after this person left, like you can't really like follow that, and you're just kind of like you're in a, a different spot, and you're trying to chase that, and you're just getting pissed off. But it's just like, what can you do? Like this
Right.
person doesn't want to. Not really so much just don't want to be around with them anymore. It's more or less like I want to do different things. I want to be known for something else instead of being with this group constantly and getting that recognition. But it's just like I want to do something else. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then she really can't be, snotty about it or anything either because they all work for the same people. It's, at the end of the day, they gotta, keep it together and keep it somewhat professional, I suppose. Of course, they're
Right.
all day drinking in the next room, so whatever. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, yeah. Cut to Mimo walking along the street and being accosted by this man trying to get her to model for him. And of course, it's revealed that she's filming another scene for the cop show. Again, really love the back and forth between, is it part of the show? Is it part of the movie? Is it her own psychosis going on here? It's some cool stuff. We see the creeper off to the side filming her. The producers on the street speaking to the writer on his cell. They got some big plans coming up here. Yeah, yeah, real big. Cut to the agency office where maybe his agent and manager are arguing over this bigger role for her on the show, but it's going to involve a rape scene. Rumi
Yeah.
firmly against it, but Mima is more pragmatic. It's one of those kind of cool tropes of you got the person arguing against the thing for the person, but then that person speaks up and overrides that person that she's going to do it. Mima's being super pragmatic about this. And I actually wrote here because I'm thinking of her in the vein of like Maxine Minks. She's going to be a fucking star, right? she's got
Exactly.
this. And back on the train, Mima's reflection suddenly speaks to her, saying that she won't do it, and that's fucked up. Cut to Mima shooting a scene where she's stripping at a club, and things go a little too far with the clientele. We've got the creeper looking on. I don't know how he gets access to the set. or if he's even really there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to get into too much descriptive detail on what's happening here, but it's getting pretty rapey. Um,
Yeah.
yep, yep. It's and they get to this moment in the shooting where they have to pause the shooting to reset the cameras and move them around. And the guy that's kind of on top of her, holding her down, he apologizes to her. He's actually super sweet about it. And
Mhm.
she's like, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. We got this. We're just acting, right? And yeah. And then we get multiple takes being shot of this scene while Mima's team is sitting there in kind of the control booth, watching. Clearly, both of them are having a hard time of it, but especially Rumi. She's in just tears and she just storms out crying. And back on the set, and it's definitely a set. It's not a real strip club because the crew was concerned about like getting permits and or not being able to get filming permits to do this like in an actual club. Um, so clearly things are a little bit rougher in this production than what would normally be on TV or anything. It's not TV, it's HBO. There you go.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, as they're filming this, Mima just kind of starts disassociating and just everything's kind of falling away from her and she thinks back to performing as a singer instead. And just kind of fade from that to Mima sitting in a makeup chair getting ready to leave for the day, just all alone, just kind of shaking it all off. Um, when she gets into the car, her agent is taking her home. Um, she even just reacts with just oh, I'm just so tired. It's, oh, what a day, right? Not like completely broken from the experience. Um, but yeah, he actually offers to take her out for a meal as something of a reward because it was a really productive day and it's likely going to be good for her career and everything. And we get the creeper just watching them drive off. Um, yeah,
This
yeah.
whole fucking sequence just whew, this is one of the moments, like, with anything that was happening in this movie, this was like, I need to take a breather because I was not ready for this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not something that you particularly think of seeing in an animated film specifically. It's,
right.
it's even though again, we've kind of beaten this point to death, but this is definitely the kind of thing where this is a psychological thriller that if it were live action, you wouldn't think twice about it. It just happens to be animated.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's a lot. It's not the actual like scene that they're filming is not particularly graphic in what is actually shown, but it's, pretty rough in what's happening. It's a lot to take in.
yeah, this
Um,
like, I think at this point, you start to realize, like, is her psyche really starting to become fractured at this point? And, like,
well,
her
that's actually a really good point you're bringing up. Um, that this could be her absolute breaking point of the film because it's supposed to be the breaking point of her character on this TV show.
hmm,
The whole point of her getting an expanded role was that her character was going to be, raped in this club and it was going to break her and she was going to like become a killer or something like that.
mhm.
And yeah, that's kind of sort of what's happening. It's yeah. Well, we'll get there. Um she gets home. She finds her fish are all dead and at first it looks like she's just going to kind of break down, but no, she starts trashing her place. Um and she finally admits out loud that she did not want to film that scene but did it anyways so that she wouldn't disappoint all the people that helped her to get to where she was. Oof. Um, and this is where we get her seeing her reflection in the computer monitor, but it's actually her doppelganger mocking her. Um, she throws a pillow at it. Her reflection turns back to normal, and she looks over at the fish tank, and the fish are alive again, except there's only two of them this time. So, like, the number of the fish seems to change quite a bit here and there, adding to the questioning of reality a little bit.
Yeah, I
There's a lot
I
that
don't
goes
do
on
it.
with this room too. Like as the movie moves on, it starts feeling like more claustrophobic and more cluttered and just like messed up.
Mm,
Um, which is perfectly appropriate for everything that's happening.
yeah.
Um,
Mhm,
we cut to the creeper. He's either writing the blog for Mima's room, or he's at least interacting with it. It's not clear at this point. But he's like mouthing along to a voiceover of what Mima is professing to be doing. It's oof, he's got it bad. Um, and then we've got Mima doing the interview circuit and the public reacting. Don't really think the creeper's too happy with the way people are reacting to her. Um, the blog's starting to spiral a little bit, and so is Mima. She doesn't remember saying any of the things that are posted there, and that's kind of freaking her out. And then the doppelganger appears again and tells her that, of course, because that's the real Mima writing this blog. Oof. Yeah, that's a super fun punch in the psychological nuts. She tells Mima that she's damaged goods and that being the real Mima, she's going to take over. And then she just kind of flits away out the window. Um, you almost think Mima's going to rush out to the balcony, but she kind of runs into the glass there. Um, and she's just kind of like dancing away across the streetlights and then eventually fades away. Um, and yeah, we get the writer back at the studio. He's backing into his parking space. There's like blood all over the wall right at his parking space, and a sign taped up over his name with the name of the show,
mhm,
double bind. And he gets out of his car, goes to look at it all, rips the sign down, and you can hear Mima's song from Cham in the background. And he calls out asking if anybody's there. We all know from Scream, you don't do that. But
mhm.
he goes over to the elevator, calls for the car. Finally comes down, and when the doors open, there's a boombox inside playing the song, just absolutely cranked up to the point where it's all distorted. Um, and we cut from his reaction to seeing the boombox to the elevator making it upstairs and the doors opening up and blood splattered everywhere, and he's there with his eyes gouged out and just kind of slumping forward. um I kind of would have liked to have seen him get grabbed or something, but
Yeah,
yeah, I still think it's very effective in how that plays out.
that
uh
whole scene was just top tier creepiness.
mhm.
Just
Well,
damn.
because him walking around the parking garage and calling out actually lasts quite a bit longer than I make it seem like. Um, and you just got that song playing around, this happy little J-pop song playing in the background. And yeah, yeah, that dude's donezo. We cut to the same trio of guys discussing Mima and the murder with the creeper sitting nearby. And we get Mima's agent driving her to work. Um, Mima sees the doppelganger in a passing car, and she hears her tell her, serves you right. And Mima pops out of the car, gives a chase of about 4 or 5 steps before kind of being snapped back to reality by her agent calling out to her. And we get Rumi marching forward looking mad as fuck. And she bursts through a door where we've got Cham gossiping about Mima about to do this photo shoot because it's kind of a notorious photographer who often gets his subjects to pose nude. Um, and they're like, oh yeah, she'll go ahead and do it. Look at what she just did with this TV show. It's, of course she will.
Right.
And Rumi is not happy about that. She's, kind of like, hey, aren't you guys supposed to be on stage now? Like, fuck out of here. Um,
Mhm.
and we cut to Mima at the photographer's studio doing the shoot. And it's all intercut with the duo of Cham performing a song. And absolutely, he gets her to pose nude. And yeah, later, we get Mima's doppelganger. Yeah, also, it's just not in any way sexy and definitely just unsettling too. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, later we get Mima's doppelganger mocking her while she gets ready for this interview or whatever. Reality kind of starts blurring as we see the creeper seeing Mima's doppelganger performing with Cham. So
Yeah.
it's like he can see her too. Okay. Yep, reality is blurring. Mima's place is a dumpster fire, and she's freaking out in the bath. This is that Requiem for a Dream shot because of this post that she read on Mima's room about performing with Cham. And she's like, I wasn't there. And
Oh my god.
and it's like the next day or something, and you see a bunch of people buying the magazine with all the photos, and the creeper dude goes up to the newsstand and like snatches them out of everybody's hands and like buys the whole set of them. You get the clerk looking up at him like the fuck because there's this giant pile of magazines there on the counter. Um, but yeah, we've got the Mima from the website continuing to push him into believing that she's the real Mima and the one in the photos is not. And then he's got all these photos of her like ripped out of news clippings and magazines and everything. And all of a sudden, all the photos come to life and start talking to him. Um, and they're like, "You're the only one I can depend on." Um, Things are definitely spiraling for him as well.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
just fucking with his head.
yeah. Yeah, we cut to Mima filming a scene on set where her character's kind of freaking out and losing her mind. And then she freaks out when she sees the creeper there on the set. But when they all stop to, see what's going on, he's disappeared. Um, and then we find out that Cham has a podcast.
Hmm.
No, it's 97. They're just doing like a radio interview or whatever, but it sure looks
Yeah.
like they're recording a podcast together. Um, so Mima is going to surprise them and say hi and just for a quick visit and catch up with her friends. But when she looks into the recording booth, she sees her doppelganger interacting with them. So she just ends up freaking out and running away. Um, Ultimately she was running away, but then she kind of ends up chasing the doppelganger. She's running down all these hallways, kind of bouncing off of people. Um, and she ends up taking this really nasty fall down some stairs. And it's like you kind of feel the pain as she hits the ground and the wall and everything. She loses
Yeah.
a shoe. It's and she gets herself up and she tears off barefoot into these rainy streets after the doppelganger. And she runs out into the street and she's about to get hit by this truck being driven by the creeper when she wakes up in bed. And this becomes one of my favorite horror film tropes of like people like waking up from something that may or may not be a dream. Then it turns out that that might be a dream as well, and they wake up again or whatever.
Yes.
It's I love that kind of stuff. But yeah, she wakes up and it's the door chime. It's Rumi. She's visiting her with cake, and that cake looks really good. But she asks her about the website and if she thinks that she's like being harassed. Match cut to Mima continuing the conversation with Rumi while on set for the TV show. And the other actor is like kind of getting frustrated with her, like, what? And the whole crew is like, no, what, those aren't the lines. What are we doing here? Um, and then the creeper is there on the set again, and then he isn't again. And then she ends up snapping awake again in bed, same newscast playing, and Rumi coming to visit with cake. Except this time, when Mima talks about, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, Rumi's like, what do you mean? I was just here yesterday. It's,
Motherfucker.
yep.
I'm just between the whole chase scene and this, like my heart's like pumping, just like Jesus fucking Christ.
Yep. Yep. And Mima's clearly not having a good time of it. She's losing her grip. And then she's got this teacup in her hands. She actually shatters the teacup in her hands. Um, cut
Ugh.
to the photographer. He's having a fun little night in. He ordered some pizza. He's going to have a little party for one. And, he goes to pay the pizza person. And the pizza person attacks him with like a screwdriver or something like that, ultimately stabbing him in the eye and in the junk. And turns out it's actually Mima in a pizza dude's outfit, and she stabs the shit out of him. This is like on one of the posters. Um, and she then snaps awake in bed again. Her agent calling her to tell her about the murder of the photographer. Um, Everybody at the agency is freaking out about it all. And, you see scenes of people on the phone like crazy, like responding to, reporters and whatnot. And then she goes and opens her closet door and she finds this shopping bag from a store that she was there was a post on the Mima's room of her going shopping at this place, and she starts digging into it and she finds the bloody pizza man outfit, and she starts freaking out, of course. But then the door chime rings, so she starts throwing clothes on real quick. Thankfully she had the chain on because she opens it up and she's got these reporters like trying to burst into her apartment asking her about the photographer's murder.
Fuck.
um that's fucked up.
Yeah, no shit. Just like privacy.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess that's not a thing. um And then we're back on set, and Rumi, she tries confronting her, but Mima doesn't even know, or not confronting, comforting her. But Mima at this point doesn't even know if she's alive. Um, she kind of questions her about it. She's about to shoot the scene of her killing a man with an ice pick, and then the actor becomes the photographer in front of her, and she just starts to pass out, and then she wakes up with a start in bed, and at this point the clutter around her is just unreal.
Yeah.
And suddenly she's in a scene from the show where she tells the doctor that she's Mima, a former idol, and she's like in an interrogation room, right? And she tells her that she's Mima, a former idol, and now an actress. And the detectives outside the one-way mirror, they give us a little bit of exposition about all this. The doctor comes out, tells them both, hey, it's she's got DID, dissociative identity disorder. And then we get the director rewinding the bit that they've just filmed, and Mima instead says the character's name instead of her own because this fucking movie. It's
Mhm.
Definitely didn't pick up on that the first time I watched this movie, but
Yeah, same,
holy
same.
crap. Um, and then the scene kind of wraps up. The director calls cut and the crew cheers. That is a wrap on Double Bind. Um, Mima's this rising fucking star, and she almost passes out. But as she does so, Rumi is behind her and bumping into her kind of snaps her awake again. They happen to be standing in the hallway. Her agent, her manager, and they're with the producer and the director, and they're like, "Hey, we'll see you at the wrap party." And everybody's super excited because they love the way this show is going. Um, and then we cut to Mima just kind of walking away. She runs into the actor who played the doctor. She calls her by the doctor's name. The actor's like, no, no, I think her name's like Ari or something like that. And the actor tells her, you got to stop dreaming soon. It's a great line.
Man.
Mima looks up after the actor leaves, and she sees it's the creeper coming down the hall. He's in his security guard outfit again. He ends up grabbing her, and we get the smash cut to Rumi closing the trunk of a car. Um, it's great because you're expecting Mima to be like smashed up against a wall or something like that, and instead you get just the clunk of that trunk closing. The agent is talking with Rumi. He's got her next project all lined up, complete with some sketchy scenes, he says. Um, that's wonderful. He's totally okay with putting her in these situations. Um, but back to Mima being attacked by the creeper who thinks he's killing the fake Mima. He's got a knife. He's getting pretty rapey. He tears open her blouse. He's got his hand under her skirt. But she does manage to push him off. They fight. And she gets thrown around a little bit, clothes ripped up a little bit more. He keeps swiping and stabbing at her, but he keeps missing. Um, and he takes off his belt and ties up her feet. And he's kind of going in for the kill or maybe something worse there. And she ends up grabbing this hammer from a tool belt that's just kind of off to her side. And she gets him so good in the side of the head.
Mm.
And it's again this little break of reality in that you don't see any blood, but he, kind of like gets off of her, mumbles a little bit of stuff, and then just drops to the ground and dies. Um, well, she got him, but ultimately, this is where the lights come up to thunderous applause from a crew that isn't even there. And she's in completely different clothes. But then we just cut right to Rumi finding her in this hallway where she's in her torn up blouse and that's about it and looking pretty worse for wear. Um, and clearly they take her and get her some clothes and stuff because she takes Rumi back to where everything happened, but nobody's there. So Rumi drives Mima home. Mima kind of falls asleep in the car. She wakes up in her room and she can hear Rumi behind the sliding door there in the little kitchenette. Um, so she gets up, she grabs her phone, she calls her agent, but he doesn't pick up. Cut to the studio where we see his body with his eyes gouged out, slumping over next to the body of the creeper.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's so clearly somebody didn't like his comments about the sketchy scenes that Mima's going to get to do in this next project. Um so yeah, back at the apartment, Mima hangs up, but then she notices that her Cham poster is back on the wall and something just clearly doesn't feel right. So she opens up the curtains to see that this isn't really her place. We see the door behind her slide open in the reflection, and Mima's like, "This isn't my room." And the voice behind her, "Of course not. This is Mima's room." It's like, oh, fuck. And at first, when she turns around, it's her doppelganger behind her. But we see in this, big full length mirror, the reflection, it's Rumi wearing this new Cham idol costume. It's just like the one from the start of the film, except now it's all red. Um, and Rumi, through this projection of Mima's doppelganger, um, reveals that she's been writing the posts on Mima's room and that she had pushed the creeper dude to do what he did. And this at this point where she just comes after Mima with an ice pick and smashes that fish tank, those poor fish.
Yeah.
And because Rumi had basically decked out this room to be an exact copy of Mima's own apartment, right down to buying more fucking fish. It's, but yeah, she's stabbing at her. It's, ultimately, smashes that fish tank. She's on top of Mima, trying to push down with the ice pick. And Mima reaches up to choke Rumi, but it's just not quite enough. And she ends up getting stabbed right about here in the chest. Um, but Mima is able to kick her off. Um, and yeah, from there, Mima kind of goes out to the balcony and somehow gets like knocked over the edge, and she's all dangling over the edge as Rumi is stabbing at her and swiping at her with the ice pick. Somehow Mima's able to leap over to this canopy, kind of like across the alleyway or whatever. Um, it all looks fairly painful. The way she like lands on that, kind of crumples over to another platform below and everything, but she's managing to get away. Meanwhile, what we see of Rumi, but as Mima's doppelganger, seems to be leaping off of the balcony and kind of flitting away after her with the greatest of ease. And I want to make sure to mention that because things will come back a little bit differently later. Um,
Yep.
but because I even commented here in my notes, I really don't know how Rumi's old ass is doing this.
Oh yeah.
But but they fight, and Mima knocks the ice pick out of her hands, and it's like on somebody else's rooftop or balcony because there's like this little umbrella stand, and Rumi grabs one of the umbrellas and chases after her. Mima stops on this kind of like a catwalk over the street, calling out for help, but then Rumi catches up with her. They fight. Mima telling Rumi to wake up. And Rumi's like, no, it's you who needs to wake up. And then they kind of fall over the edge into this convenient pile of garbage bags. And Mima runs off with Rumi chasing after. And I think it's around here that we see as Rumi is chasing her, her reflection in some glass that she's running by, where the projection that Mima is seeing of her doppelganger, who's able to chase after her with the greatest of ease. Sure, there's that, but there's also Rumi's old ass just struggling to chase after her, just frothing at the mouth and yeah, having a hard time ultimately. Um, I like that a lot. On the street down below, then Rumi catches up and ends up stabbing Mima kind of in the side with the umbrella. But Mima keeps stumbling on until Rumi catches up with her in front of this big window. It's like a storefront or something like that. Rumi ultimately smashing it with the umbrella. And she gets Mima kind of pinned up against the wall with the umbrella as they tussle, but Mima reaches out and rips off Rumi's wig. And the older woman looks absolutely crazed at this point. And
Oh yeah.
it finally shifts something in Rumi having the wig ripped off because, she's not like this complete, picture of what she envisions Mima to be without the whole getup, right?
Right.
And Mima kind of tosses the wig through the broken window. Well, Rumi can't have that. She has to reach out to grab for it. But of course, in so doing, stabs herself on this massive shard of broken glass, like right in the gut. There's a big bunch of blood that splashes on the ground, and she gets up and kind of gets the wig back on and sort of stumbles off into the street. Um, and this is where she kind of collapses to the ground in the street. And we get that iconic shot that just everybody's seen from this movie of Mima in the red idol outfit with the blood smeared on her face. And it's at this point where she starts to lighten up a little bit because, of course, there's a vehicle coming at her because she's sitting there in the middle of the street, and she stands up because she's kind of back in her Mima persona as these lights are coming at her. And the way that she's perceiving them is like lights on the stage. It's almost like
Hmm.
she's greeting this truck as her adoring fans or something like that. And Mima looks at her, realizes what's about to happen, and just in time leaps out and grabs her, and they roll away from the truck that, for whatever reason, was not going to stop. Um, sure, um, but um, and we get Rumi definitely passed out. I think the wig's knocked off again, and yeah, Mima's alive, and time has passed. And Mima goes to the hospital to drop off flowers for Rumi. The doctor doesn't know why she comes and tells her that Rumi only occasionally returns to her own personality. Um, but Mima tells him that she comes to visit because Rumi, made her what she is today. Um, so ultimately, Mima goes to leave. And she passes by a couple of nurses outside who are like, "Hey, is that actress Mima?" It's like, "No, it's only a lookalike. No, that can't be her." And Mima gets in the car, looks up at her reflection, kind of pulls her sunglasses down, and she's like, "No, I'm real." It's that felt extra 1980s right there, but I love it still. And we get credits with a super poppy song. It's but she's clearly okay. She has survived her ordeal, and now she's got the fame that she was always seeking to. She is a working actress. Yeah, that's fucking perfect blue, man.
Fucking A, man. Oh, it's just like just remembering all of this shit again, just going through the motions and just experiencing it again. Like, whew,
Yeah.
what a ride! It's a ride.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and there is so much in this that you think of like very traditional um psychological thriller with the breaking of reality of the what's real, what isn't real stuff, but it just keeps going there with snapping you out of one scene and suddenly you're in another, but you have no idea how you really got there.
Yeah.
um I love that. So it's it's a lot of fun. um God, I yeah, just again, the way this is all put together. I don't want to say shot because it's animated, but ultimately just all the different match cuts, all those little bits where, somebody's going from one scene to another, but they're continuing the dialogue from the first scene, and people are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Because of that. It's, yeah, it's very cool.
Oh yeah, it's like. I think this is like my first step into that genre with an animated movie, and I don't think animation wise anything can top this. Like this is like a quintessential like animated psychological thriller that keeps you guessing
Mm,
and questioning reality or just dream esque scenes. Like, whew,
yeah.
it's just thinking about it, just like trying to catch my breath.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where I should take a look online to see about just recommendations of other animated films that kind of go in this direction because there's not that many if there are. It's
Right. It's
this is a
not.
little unique in that regard. Um, but yeah, man, it, the, again, very clear the inspiration that this had on Black Swan. It's that would be fun to rewatch that movie sometime soon, just because of going through this dive into this film, and it being a little bit more fresh in my mind, just to see what you can see in that movie. But yeah, yeah, it's clearly there. Um, yeah.
That's
Uh,
true.
Johnny, final thoughts on Perfect Blue.
Ooh, boy. Um, a great animated movie. I would say within a time period like the two that are like stuck in my brain is this and Akira. Like those two, like the quintessential like anime movies that I will repeatedly put on. I wouldn't say a comfort watch.
Yeah.
I would say like one of those movies where like I'm gonna put this on because I feel like I want to really dive more into it because each time you see it, you see bits and pieces of stuff you never seen still, and you're
Yeah.
still like getting like new shit over and over again, like with the shots, um, the little other set pieces of the doppelganger, or just like the other scenes that we were talking about, like, is this really real or is it not? Because with your first watch, you're thinking something else. It's like other watches, and you start like really thinking like, okay, this is what that is. This is what this is.
Mhm.
But this is, and I think I've rated this on Letterbox twice. Is a 5 for me.
Yeah.
It's like it's a perfect fucking movie.
This absolutely feels like one of those movies where the more you see it, the more you increase your score on the movie.
Yep,
It's very,
pretty much.
very easily. Um, yeah, it's God, you bring up Akira. Akira's like a lot of people's gateway anime film. It's like the first one they watch, just because everybody talks it up. And, it's, especially for people of my generation where we didn't have easy access to a lot of those types of films. It was the film that was at the rental place.
Mhm.
It's so sure, people would mention it and you're like, okay, yeah, we'll check it out. And then Kaneda doing the slide on the motorcycle will forever be seared into your brain, right? So
Mhm.
that's like the gateway anime. This one is do you want to see anime that really kind of breaks new grounds and is something that you will not expect from, anime? It's kind of a genre, but it kind of isn't either. It just
Mhm.
because you can do so many different things in an animated format, for really for all ages and for all tastes. And yeah, this absolutely broke some ground at that time in the late 90s. So very cool. Very cool. I'm glad we got to do this.
Ugh.
Johnny, where can people find you if you would like them to find you?
Um, people can find me both at Instagram and X, or Twitter. Well, I still say Twitter. I
Yeah,
don't.
so do I.
I
We don't
hate
we
the
don't call it X. Come
yeah.
on.
um, Black Kool-Aid on both. Capital B, capital K. Zeros as O's. I usually just do postings of reviews of movies that I watch periodically. I usually do 31 days of horror for the month of October every year, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Just Black Kool-Aid both places. You know, come chat with me because like I love interaction. So yeah.
Well, it's always fun talking movies with you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I highly, highly, highly appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you did, or glad you had fun, man. It was a good conversation, and yeah, we'll have to think about doing this again in the future.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode. But until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.